Call this meeting to order. Not the utility service.
Well, go ahead.
Okay. It's Utility Service Board, June the 13th, on Monday. We'll take a roll call. Ashley's not here. Stan?
Here.
Jen?
Here.
Carla? Ron, I'm here, so 4 of us are here. Can you
The public hearings.
So we have 2 public hearings. The first one is for well, I guess it doesn't matter what order. One of them is to lower the water rates based on the rate study information that was provided to you by our,
Steve Rocker.
yep. And then the second one is to repeal the utility receipts tax, which we are required to do by law before July 1, 2022. So there are 2 public hearings. I don't care which order we go in.
Okay, how about we do the rate change, the water rate change first, lowering it. And do we have any council comments on it, discussion? I think we discussed it before.
Yep.
Carla? Okay.
Public comments.
I know.
It's a public-
We do want to lower it, so. Public comments, anybody on the water change? Lower? Okay. Do we need, no comments at all? And we need to,
So what we can do is we can go ahead and close that public hearing, and then we will vote on those after we finish the second public hearing. So
okay.
then the second one would be for the utility receipts tax repeal, which also lowers the rate.
Okay. I'll close this public meeting for the water rate change ordinance. And open another meeting for the utilities receipt tax repeal. Is there any discussion by the board on that?
This is something that was passed down from the legislature, so we don't, this isn't even something we really have
Right.
an option.
We have to do it, so. Any public comment out there? Okay, so no comments whatsoever, so we'll close that meeting.
Okay, and then we can go ahead and move forward with whichever ordinance you want to do first. I think last time, didn't we do both of them on first reading? Or did we?
We did first reading for the one that lowers the rates,
The water-
but the utility receipt tax, I don't think
We
we
didn't do
did
anything.
Yeah.
Okay,
And we're just
so
gonna do it all.
for the one that lowers the rates, we will need to do a second reading on, and then pass it on second reading, and that will pass that ordinance. For the utility receipts tax ordinance, we can go ahead and do the vote and see if it's unanimous to suspend the formalities.
Okay.
All right,
Let's do
so,
the-
go ahead, sorry.
The water reducing, the rate change ordinance, we want to do that first?
Yes.
So I will make a
So I would make a
motion.
motion to waive formal second reading of that ordinance, and then,
Yeah, so then we don't have to actually read the ordinance.
please, second.
Okay, we got a motion by Jen to waive the reading of it and vote on the water rate change ordinance. We got a second by Carla. We'll take a roll call vote. Stan, how do you
Yes.
vote? Jen?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so that passes 4-0.
So I would move to pass on second reading ordinance number 2022-3, an ordinance amending the rates and charges for the waterworks utility.
Second.
We have another motion by Jen for what she just said and seconded by Carla. We'll take a roll call vote. Stan?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
And Ron, I vote yes, so it's 4-0 on that one. Is that all we need to do on that one?
Yes.
That was, yes, and then for the other one, we'll need to do the process of waiving formal.
So I would move to waive formal reading of ordinance number 2022-4, an ordinance amending the rates and charges for the waterworks utility.
And to pass it after on first
And to
reading.
pass on first reading. I didn't know I could be together. That's easy.
Okay, we got a motion by Jen to waive the formal reading
And adopt on first reading.
and adopt on first reading, and we got a second by Carla. We'll take we need discussion, no, we really don't. We'll take a roll call vote. Stan?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so that passes 4-0. So we don't need to do that.
So then I would move to adopt ordinance number 2022-4, an ordinance amending the rates and charges for the waterworks utility.
Yes.
Because that was to waive formal reading and adopt it on the first reading, so then this is to actually adopt it.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion that Jen made and a second by Carla. We'll take another roll call vote. Stan?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so that passes 4-0.
Okay, that's all I've got.
Okay, we'll have our utility report by Mark.
Okay, first item I have is under water. It's the Baker Farms water pressure. So I had a homeowner stop me out there and then talked to Bridget. She'd had a couple mention also that they had low water pressure, which doesn't make sense. There's an 8-inch water main out there, so a couple of things might be the culprit. One is, there's a 3/4 inch water line going to each house. So if they have their irrigation system running at the exact same time, it could be. So I mentioned that to him. He said, no, it's all the time, the gentleman I met. I said, well, one thing about new homes is that during construction or installation of the water service line to the house, there can get shavings or sediment or something in those water lines. So I told him to remove the aerators from all his faucets, make sure they're clean, shower head, that type of stuff. And I told him if that did not work, to get back to me. That was just last week. So I'm just making you aware that there's been a couple comments. Next item is the Prestwick well house. Duke Energy has begun installing the new electrical mains back in what I call Prestwick. So that's Cables Mill, Turkey Run, Shackamack, all that. So Ron, were you here in '98 when they put in the new water system?
Yeah.
You were part of the board though?
No, it wasn't
No.
on the board.
Yeah. The reason I ask is because when Prestwick was built and the town did not have city water, they had 2 wells. And they had their own water system for all of that development. Well, once city water came in, they did away with those wells. But I couldn't find any documentation of exactly where they were located and all that stuff. And so I'm just bringing it up in that they're boring right through where that well house was and all that. And I had them daylight the 4-inch ductile iron lines that went to the wells themselves, but I didn't know if you had any information about that.
But if you do need to find him, go over and talk to John Swift. He
Is that
probably
right?
knows, yeah, because he was on the utilities all that time. So.
Next item is Wesleyan hydrant relocate bids. So I've solicited 3 bids. These are the contractors I chose, and the only reason I chose them is because I've worked with them before. So one was Heartland Excavating, the other was Coco Peldes, the other was KA Contracting. KA is the one that relocated the hydrant on State Road 38. So Heartland got back to me and said that they would not be bidding on it because their schedule's filled up until fall. Coco Pelli, that's Jeff Bush. He met me on site, said that he is going to be submitting a bid. KA Contracting asked me to send them the specifications on it, and I got back to them. I said, you just need to meet me on site. It's a fairly simple project, but it's pretty straightforward. So I think we're going to get 2 bids on it. I think we're required to solicit 3, but doesn't mean that all 3 have to So what I'm saying is we'll have met our requirements
Yeah.
for what we're doing.
You know someone else you can get a third bid from?
You know, not that comes from the top of my head that I can think of. Those are the three contractors I've always worked with in town. These larger contractors, they don't wanna do stuff like that. They're too small of projects, or they've got so much work going on. But I'd be glad to contact another one if anybody has one that they'd like for me to contact. I mean, it only takes a minute, so.
Well, let us think about it.
Okay. Wastewater and stormwater, I don't have any items this month. An item that I brought up at the last board meeting was about the state's recommendation about monthly street sweeping. So I got a hold of Complete Sweeps, who we use currently.
Mhm.
So, he said the rate is $150 an hour, that's what he charges us. Said it's 7 to 8 hours. He actually gave us an annual rate. So let's say 8 hours, what would that be? That would be
1,200?
1,200, so it'd be about 1,200 a month, which sounds pretty high. That's about what we pay now, you know, for the initial cleanup. So, anyway, that's the number he gave us, and he also said, that would be the cost this year, the rate will probably go up next year. So,
And
It's
Mark,
like it-
there's your speaker there, your microphone. What's he charge if he's gotta dump it somewhere in town, or does that, did we get a break because of that, or?
I'm guessing that he just included that because he always has a place to dump it here, you know. So I guess a good way to look at it is it's $150 an hour this year. We'd be looking at probably $1,200 a month, you know? So, April, May, June, July, August, September, 6 months, we'd be looking at probably $7,500 if we did it every month. I would think, if you're even considering it, that we do like a May, July, September. But this, I want to get those numbers for you, so be thinking about it, okay?
Is there other place we can put it out for bid, like our trash,
I suppose we could.
just to get a feel for it, what somebody else would look
Right.
for?
Well, I'll tell you
If
what
he
I'll
thinks
do.
he's got no competition, he's gonna be high.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll speak to some people in other towns and see who they use. That'll be a starting point, anyway. I know some of them, all they do is parking lots
Oh.
for Walmart or whatever, and they don't really do street sweeping per se. I'll check into it, I'll check with some other towns. I know Battleground uses clean sweeps or complete sweep, and he told me that they've always done it every month, like April through September, and he was telling me it was $600 a month.
How big are,
I
how
thought
many?
that's what we used to pay.
But I mean, I don't know for sure, I never drove all around Battleground, but isn't it about the same size as Dayton, or is Dayton larger? Think we have more streets?
Dayton's a little larger.
Is it?
But not twice as large.
Not twice as large, yeah. But I will, Stan, I'll
I
check
think,
with
yeah, that's a good idea.
Mulberry, Rossville, towns of similar size anyway. Okay. Let me write that down so I don't.
So off it can I practice on the streets.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Get you in a room.
All right,
Yeah.
I have many, I've read them up here.
Okay, the next item is the advertisement and bid date, so I received, the publication that goes in the newspaper from BF&S, okay? So I don't know how this is done for sure, whether you take it down to the newspaper or you email it to them, or exactly how that's done, but they've got it,
We're regulars with them now.
Okay, so we've got it ready.
Cool.
So it will be advertised, just so you know, I'm looking at the schedule, it's supposed to be advertised June 24th and July 1st.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and give this to you, Jen.
Yes, please.
So the bid documents will pick up at BF&S. They won't be here, so that's good in a sense. And they're not free, so it'll discourage everybody getting them just because they want to possibly bid on it. One thing I did hear on the news a week or two ago is that the city of Lafayette is having trouble finding contractors to bid on projects.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that do are significantly higher than the engineer's estimate.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to BF&S about that and what we could possibly do to encourage that. And they said, well, right now we have a completion date of no later than October 21st. They said if your bids come in way over, you don't get a bid. You can always extend that completion date out. And that maybe will bring some bidders in. So, something to think about. So, next item, and Jen had some good news, so we got the grant agreement from NDOT.
Yes.
So, do you want to go ahead and take your vote? Do you need a vote to sign that, or you want to go ahead and do that? Or?
Yes. Well, do we, I mean, I assume, do I have to?
Yeah, I would do a motion to approve the agreement, and then I would also include in that motion authorization if you have one person sign authorizing that specific person to sign on behalf of the town. And you can do that in one motion if you want.
Well, we kind of did that last month, gave her the
Authority.
signatory authority on it.
So then we can just approve the agreement. I couldn't remember if we'd done that or not.
Yes. You want to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the 2022 CCMG grant agreement.
I second it.
Here we have a motion by Jen to approve the 2022 CNG CC grant agreement, seconded by Stan. We'll take a roll call vote. Stan?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Carla? Yes. And I vote yes, so that passes 4-0.
Okay,
Is that all?
so Jen, you'll be signing that and emailing that back to her and all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff? Okay.
Yeah. And it has to be done very soon because they give you 48 hours till it expires.
Good.
So. I will
Is that
get
right?
Yeah. You have to have a password to get in and everything.
Huh.
Serious,
What if you didn't have a meeting?
I don't know, you're calling a special meeting, I guess.
Yeah.
Serious business.
Okay, the last item I have is digitizing of the water and sewer laterals. So, just as a reminder, 2 years ago, I got a hold of USIC, who does the locates for several utilities. And they said they really weren't interested in it because while our main lines are on GIS, the laterals are not. So Jen asked me to see about whether Alliance of Indiana, the association that we're members of, if they did that. So I got a hold of them and said, hey, is one of the services you provide helping small towns digitize or GIS their service lines? And I'll just read the email to you, that way I don't get tangled up. It says, we currently aren't doing any digitizing or GSI mapping, although it's been discussed. There are several companies that provide excellent services to do this, and here's 3 vendors who might give you a price. They're cloud-based applications that use aerial maps with good detail, and says, we'd love to speak to you about this after you have chosen a vendor, and maybe we could help the town of Dayton as a pilot project for Alliance. The 3 companies are Zip Tilly, Diamond Maps, and Silversmith, and gave me the contact information. It says there are more vendors that can help you with this, but these 3 have high ratings on simplicity, ease of use, and cost. So, I think what I'll do is get a hold of these three and tell them we have, you know, approximately 500 customers and what we're looking for, and maybe even scan and email them an example of one of our maps for each home that we use, and just see what they say. We'll see where we go from there.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Sweet.
Now, if you remember, the cost to have USIC do this was about, before they got, because that's the first thing I asked them, how much does it cost? It's about $20 a locate, so it's not cheap. Because you can get many in one day, but, and here's another thing. There's so many locates being submitted, which they've done a good job of marketing. You've all seen the TV commercials. If you're gonna plant a tree, if you're gonna say, call 811, which is a good thing, but they're just overloaded with things in Tippecanoe County, and they're supposed to have them all marked within 48 hours of your request. I've seen it go as far as 8 days.
Mark, when you were gone, I did like that one day, 10 or 11 locates.
Yep.
9 of them were on Main Street. And every one I went to, I reflagged them and marked them with blue, but your lines were there
Yeah.
on all of them, but they were so faded. You must have done that quite a while ago. Well, the
Yes.
Mulberry guy rolls up, and hi, Ron, and I said, we got talking, I said, when you guys ask for these locates, it'd be nice if you planned it a little better to get to them, because if you were paying somebody $20 a shot, you might have to locate it 3-4 times.
Yes.
And why do they call in so many that they can't even get to 10 of them right there on one
Right.
street?
Oh, I know.
Seems like it ought to be a little, but he said they'd try to do a little better and watch it a little better. So,
That's what he told me too.
Yeah.
But they have 4 different contractors, so it's hard to
yeah.
manage that. And, I mean, you do what you can because
Yeah.
we're responsible.
But in a normal year, it wouldn't be bad, but when if you're paying, and you have to do one place 5 times, that can be
Yes,
real
it
expensive.
adds up.
You photograph your locates when you do them, correct?
I do not.
You might think about doing that.
Well, I noticed that USIC always photographs everything they do.
I did the ones I
They
did,
do.
just so.
Probably a best practice, I would say, to do that, just because if something happens where they mow their grass and they move your flags and they don't put them back in the right spot, it will basically prove that you're not liable for mislocating something if they
Yeah.
then dig and if it is taking a period of time for people to get to it, that might be something you wanna start doing. I do know with Silversmith, other utilities that I work with use that, and they have, I believe, in their programming, if you get their like little tablet things, they have a locate app that I think you can get with that, and they have a program that allows you to photograph it and link it to the locate. So there's some really cool things that Silversmith can do. I'm not familiar with the other programs, but there are some other municipalities who use that, and they do have a lot of really cool features. I have no idea what they cost,
Yeah.
but at least a cell phone picture would be better than nothing.
Sure.
Just
Yeah, that's a good idea.
just a suggestion.
Okay. Any questions about anything?
Yeah. Well, while you're standing here, I guess I'll do it in this meeting. You talked about down that side road in Baker's Farm.
Yeah.
It's cracking up and breaking down, and it's probably got a 1/2 inch asphalt, 3 inches over here and a 1/2 inch there. I think we need to go, I don't know if we formally actually said, let's have BF&S look at it and do some probing and tell us what needs to be done, because we want to get that corrected at their cost, and we don't want to set that road, because it looks to me like it's going to fall apart in the next 2 years. I mean, this town's going to be liable. So, does anybody have any thoughts on that, or?
I think we need to get it professionally evaluated, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So, do we need a motion to have BF&S, or can we just ask them to do it under their contract, general contract?
I think so. Because he's aware of it, Mike Smith.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
aware of it,
Yeah,
yeah.
I just wanted to push on it now and really get the, because it's summer coming with all this, so it's not in the fall, and they say they can't do it in the fall and everything, so.
Yeah. I'll get hold of him this week then.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our list, we got July late fees, utility office closure. Bridget's gonna be gone at the end of July, so we need to just get an approval to extend the late fees until Thursday, the 4th of August. And we have everything covered. So what does the council think about that?
Yeah, so she'll be gone that last week when a lot of people decide to pay their bills, and if somebody tries to come in to pay it, or call to pay it, she won't be here. So I think giving them 4 days at the beginning of August is fair. So then late fees would be applied August 5th? Friday, August 5th?
Yes.
Have it there Friday, August 4th?
Extend them in the, so do we need a motion on that?
Doesn't hurt.
Make a motion that we extend the late fees to August 5th.
Okay, do we extend until August the 4th, so that we can apply them on the 5th? Do you extend it
I'll
until?
amend your motion.
Okay, that's
Yeah, till Thursday, the 4th.
until Thursday the 4th.
Okay. Okay, we got a motion by Stan to extend the late fees till Thursday, the 4th of August, and it's seconded by Carla. We'll take a roll call vote. Stan?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so tell Bridget to extend those.
Bridget, extend those.
You hear that, Bridget?
Tell her.
Okay, so may I put my input in?
A little late for
Step
that.
up podium, please.
Pardon?
Step up the
I
podium,
can't run, I'm in
please.
here without shoes on. Fixing my foot.
Camera's not aimed at the floor.
We need your name and address.
Name, address.
Bridget Cadwalader, utility clerk, how's that? So, I come back and it's the 1st. So, I mean, I'm doing a week and a half worth of invoice cloud payments. I'm doing 45 auto pays, which takes me hours, plus all the payments that are gonna come in that last week. Can you please extend it to like that Monday? So it's a lot for me to get done in 3 days before I post penalties. Or even go to Friday.
But if we go to Friday, then you're running into the weekend, and then.
But I'm
then
just
it does-
posting penalties then, and then I can do disconnects on Monday. Would that work?
So you needed that extra day?
Yeah, that, I mean, it's a lot. That last week of the month.
Yeah.
I mean, the majority of the payments come in.
Yeah.
And there's days I
Wow.
post 60 and 80 payments.
Yeah, that's probably okay.
So then late fees
I
will
mean,
be
'cause
up.
usually there are, on the last day of the month, there's at least 40 invoice cloud payments pending off for the very last day of the month.
So you're asking for the 5th, and then the fees would apply
The
on the
8th.
8th.
Yes, if that works for you guys.
So Stan, you want to amend it till Friday the 5th?
Well, we already voted, didn't we?
New motion in?
Yes, we already voted on it, so just do a new motion to supersede the old motion.
I make a motion that supersedes Stan's very old motion to waive late fees until August 7th, and they'll be applied August 8th.
Okay, thank
I
you.
second it.
Okay. We have a motion to change Stan's ordinance, and then a second by Stan. We'll take a roll call vote. Stan?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so we'll extend that to the 5th. All right, public comments for utilities? Any comments from the council?
I do have one thing, sorry, I know I already took my turn, but I
No,
forgot.
that's okay.
I emailed Jen about this, but with regards to utility receipts tax, on the next 2 bills, after we pass this, we are required to put certain language, and I emailed that to Jen. But Bridget will need to know about that probably because it's gonna have to go
Yep.
on the bills for 2 billing cycles.
Yep.
So, okay,
Totally.
now I'm done, I promise.
Okay, thank you. Okay, nobody else has any comments in from the council? Okay, we'll adjourn the meeting and turn it over to Jen.
Thanks. All right, this is the June 13th meeting of the Dayton Town Council. Roll call has been taken. 4 members present. First up is Alicia.
Okay, so the APC ordinance 103 is the one that we talked about last meeting regarding the, this was the one regarding like the at-home service providers, medical service providers, and Jen did some digging and found out that if we don't, do anything with that within 90 days, then there will be a little asterisk at the bottom or footnote that basically says that Dayton did not approve that, or I'm sorry, if we say no, there will be an asterisk that says Dayton didn't approve it and that does not apply to the town of Dayton. If you do nothing and you don't vote on it within 90 days from when it was presented, then it will basically just pass without your vote. So if you are strongly opposed to it, then you should vote on that. But otherwise, you can just let it go if you don't want to do anything, or you can adopt it. But that, again, was mostly for, or not mostly, it was for single provider medical services, essentially, mostly for, the real thing that came up was about like massage people who do single massages in their home and that sort of thing. So.
What are your thoughts, Dan?
I don't have to opinion one way or the other. I don't think that anybody would abuse that if we, I don't see it being a problem in Dayton. But if we don't want it, that's fine too.
What are your thoughts, Carla? I was gonna say Ron, but then he's gonna take a minute, so.
I don't have any issues with it, I'm fine with passing it.
What are your very strong opinions, Ron?
I don't really care what we do, it's not a life and death problem, but I wonder a couple things. This list of all these massage therapy, dietitians, all that, they've been prohibited for years and years and years, and it seemed like there'd be a good reason for that versus now all of a sudden changing it. I hope it's not because area plan is getting a couple groups of massage people that are pushing and really trying to push it through. I do notice that they talk about a one-chair beauty shop or a one-chair this. Well, I sat out this window here and looked at Doc Taft's office, and he had a one-chair doctor's office, and there was 6, 8 cars at a time, 5 to 8 cars that they parked over here behind the building, and they parked in the town hall parking lot every time he was open, because I think he ran them through there in 10, 15 minutes. So the people were, there was room in his lobby for 3 or 4, then the rest stood on the porch or mingled by their car. So now it's not bad up here because it's a commercial area, but it shows what a one-chair thing could happen. But I just am opposed. I think it's one more foot in the door to in a residential area. I think people buy a residential area, and we have, I know in our residence back there, there's a couple of people almost running businesses out of homes, and it adds a lot more cars and stuff like that. But I think these 10 people, first of all, they're all professionals that have licenses, and I don't know that I'd go to a dentist in a corner house there with one chair. I don't know why they seem to have, these listed would have better occupations and a higher money coming in to be able to rent a normal place. It just seems a little, I don't know, I don't know if I trust them. But the main thing is it's just one set of people here, and then you're putting 10 more occupations in that block over there that's residences, and I think it opens it then, what about if 10 more come, pretty soon you got all these one-room businesses around you, so, like I say, it's not life or death, but I sort of think it's like the builders, they get one thing, and then next year they get another thing, and before we know it, instead of 15-foot lot lines, we got 3-foot lot lines, so, and our police also have to monitor this and sort of keep an eye on it too, so, but that's my thoughts, you guys can do what you
All right.
want, so.
So I do have some thoughts on this too, maybe stronger than Ron's, that's so nicely. So the more I thought about this, like Scott brought up some very valid concerns last time about, you know, what if shady people come in and do this, which like these are all licensed professionals, but licensed professionals can still be shady. Like, so there could be some doctor writing scripts to, anyway. So that's a valid concern. Another concern is, like, during snow things or street sweepings, like, we already have so many cars in the street that have to get off the street. So then we would be inviting more cars to, like, please park on the street because nobody has long driveways. Most people don't have long driveways here, so, like, please park on the street while you wait your turn. Might be a concern during certain times. Another thing is, so like, everybody's kids probably play outside, right? And like, when they're playing around your neighborhood or whatever, you kind of know, like, yeah, that car's always there, or yeah, I think that's their friend, like, I recognize that car from somewhere, whatever. I don't think we should have to wonder, like, I think they have a business in their house. Are those 3 cars watching my kids? Or, you know, like, or what are the hours for these operations? Like, is somebody giving a massage at midnight? So when I, like, see somebody walk out of their car and, like, pounding on my neighbor's door at midnight, do I need to call the police because they don't belong there? Or they just get a massage? I don't know. So I feel like we don't have, like, a neighborhood watch, but I feel like everybody watches their neighborhood, right? You kind of know who comes and who goes, and if you see a car that doesn't belong, you're kind of like, oh, I've never seen you before, what are you doing here? So I don't want to invite more random cars and people, like, to a small neighborhood where there's lots of kids. I think that was it, but I feel pretty strongly about it. Like, I just,
So you want to say
I want
no?
to say no to this.
Say no?
To this, yeah.
I got a question, where this is on, there's only 4 people here, and if the vote's 2-2, and I'm the town clerk that breaks the vote,
Yeah, that's a
can I
unique
vote twice?
situation. I'm not honestly sure the answer to that. Technically, the town clerk would be the one that would break the vote, and you're serving in that capacity.
You want to vote?
I've
But-
seen it where I did break a vote before,
Uh-huh.
when I was clerk, and I've never seen I've seen a lot of stuff about the clerk as the
Mhm.
tiebreaker, but I've never seen anything that when they are on the council too.
Right, yeah, I'm not sure exactly how that would work. That would be something I'd have to check case law, because I don't think the statute really, expects that would be
Yeah.
a case
Yeah.
that would come up all that frequently. So I honestly don't know the answer, and I'd have to
Yeah,
check. So, you know, if somebody doesn't wanna make it a tie, I'll make it a tie here.
So, since this came from area plan, if I want to make a motion to deny this, do I just make a motion to deny this?
You can,
Okay.
yes. The other thing you can do is if you didn't wanna do this today, I could check into what needs to happen if there is a tie, if we feel like that's gonna be a thing, and then you could always vote on it next meeting. I'm not sure exactly, well,
Just pushing it.
Well,
We need
you
to-
have
I
to-
don't remember when this came out, so
you
that's the
have
only
to
thing.
remember that this is
It's
also,
the 90 days.
you're also looking at the rewording from, looking at January, what came out from APC, or the rewording of the ordinance put out in April, and that's where the sticky wicket came in with APC and the vote, and that's what they resent out, was because of the wording. So there's that.
So, and I don't know when the
as well.
timeline starts is the thing. So,
Well,
Where
because
we voting?
it came out, the ordinance committee came out with rewording, because,
Yeah.
are you done?
Yeah.
What?
While I was talking, I didn't know if I need to stop, so.
No, you go ahead.
So the ordinance, committee, and it came back to the ordinance committee, while the ordinance committee chose to reword the section that was in here.
Mhm.
And that then Lafayette sent it back and said, no.
Mhm.
And then, so it came back into APC, and it just got a little weird on the vote. So it probably would start from April as far as the count is concerned.
Which would
But they,
July.
right, but the wording, they want to keep, APC wants to keep from January. I'm not sure if we're wanting to vote it down, that it really matters, but I just want to be clear that that's also part, we need to be clear when we send back to APC what our vote is, that it's not just the wording, but that we're voting against the ordinance, the amendment in general.
Right,
So I just want to make that clear, that that's not just
Because-
here.
this was the one that was separated out because they had.
No, I think you guys are talking about
Or-
something else.
Yeah, Carla, I think what you're referring to maybe is the one that was separated out.
103A,
And that was to do with,
self-storage warehouses in urbanized areas.
I thought that was what this one.
no, this one is
They ran
the,
them all through on the same night, so I do, it's possible that I'm getting them.
well, there
confused.
was 103, which I think was
This.
this, and then there was 103A, and it might be that the two were originally together and then they separated them because they changed the language of the second part of 103 and made it 103A. That's the
And
self-storage.
that might be, because, yeah, because they, like I said, they ran them through
Right.
at the same time.
So
So I could-
probably to be safe, we should probably vote on it tonight. And then if there is a tie, I will look tomorrow to see what we need to do.
All right. Public comment? Or Scott comment? Yep, go ahead. Could you step to the podium, or just talk really, really loud?
Cindy Marsh, 749 Shady Lane, and I'll see if I can persuade someone who might vote yes on this. Is that, like in our neighborhood, we have a business that's already allowed, it's not one of the new ones that they're allowing in, but it's a professional business. They have, besides the owner, probably at least one, probably two, maybe three people that work there too. So, you know, you've got bookkeeper, or somebody to answer the phone, a receptionist, maybe one person does it all, but it's still an extra car. So, you know, in our neighborhood, there's room. They've got 2 acres, so then they've got a big drive. But if they tried to do that in Deerfield or even up here in the older part of town, it would be a huge mess. And so, and instead of expanding this list of allowed businesses, I'd like to see it like reduced, but that's not gonna happen. But I definitely don't think we should expand it any, that's my opinion.
Thank you. Anyone else, public comment? Scott, did you want to say anything?
You already hit on my topics.
Okay, cool. So I would move to deny this Unified Zoning Ordinance Amendment 103, allowing medical professional home occupations.
I second it.
All right, there's been a motion made by myself and seconded by Ron to deny this amendment 103, allowing medical professional home occupations. How do you vote, Stan?
I vote yes.
How do you vote, Ron? To deny it.
To deny it, yes.
Carla? Do you
You're voting
yes want to deny?
Yes, I want to deny it, or
I don't
double negatives.
I don't like double negatives, so I will vote to deny.
Okay, and I also vote yes to deny, so it is denied 4-0.
Cool, no tie.
No tie.
Okay, next thing on my portion is APC Ordinance 104. This one, I think, is pretty straightforward. Essentially, there is a Haven House, which is a property that kids who are going to go into foster care but don't yet have foster caretakers to take them in, they basically go to this home for, I think, up to 48 to 72 hours. They stay at this home. It's kind of like a group home, but it's not a permanent living situation. And then once they are placed in foster care, they leave this residence. And essentially, the Haven homes are zoned in a weird way because they were counted as other social services not elsewhere classified, and it's allowed in all commercial zones except highway business. Since they're mostly in office type settings, putting them in commercial zones makes sense, but this one is more a residential type setting, kind of similar to a group home. So what they are suggesting that happens is that we amend the ordinance to add a Haven home, which is a social service facility assisting children awaiting foster care or similar placement, and that would be categorized in the special exception in all residential zones, and by right in MBU and MRU, which is the non-business or the normal business use. So that they're recommending, the staff is recommending that you approve this ordinance to amend that zoning.
All right,
So, but basically it's saying that they can have these places in a residential area and it don't have to be in a commercial area as it is now.
Exactly. But by special exception. So they'd still have to like apply for a special exception to get into the,
Rather than doing a complete rezone.
Correct.
For the area.
And this is for kids going in and out, definitely needs to, yes.
and from what I understand, it's a home, like they go there and they play and they take a bath and they take a nap and they get dressed and they hang out and watch TV or play a game or whatever, instead of going to some stuffy office with a bunch of nothing for kids and.
Then it's limited
So-
time that they spend there.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, 72 hours. Up to 72 hours.
Yeah.
I make a motion, we pass the ordinance 104.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion made by Stan and seconded by Ron to adopt this ordinance, which for us will be ordinance number 2022-5. Is there any discussion before we vote? Public comment? All right, let's go. Stan? Ron?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
All right, and I vote yes, so that's adopted, 4-0.
The last thing I have is the maintenance agreement between the voice systems Keystone, which is something that you use for billing and direct deposit. And I reviewed the contract and I had no issues with it other than a couple of little typos, but otherwise it's fine. So if you want to approve that, you could do a motion to do so.
Okay, I make a motion to approve this voice systems maintenance terms and conditions acceptance agreement and to allow Ron to sign this.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion made by myself and seconded by Carla to approve this and have Ron sign it. Is there any discussion? And just so you know, this is just like what we use for all of our, like billing and payroll. It's just key billing, key fund, key payroll. It just comes with every year. Yeah, we have not seen this before, I don't think, because I think this just got signed by someone and sent back instead of being given to the attorney like we give all of our contracts and then approved by the council. It just got approved by the person that felt like signing it. So that's why you might be like, what is this? So,
No discussion before on this.
yeah, so. Any questions or comment, public or council? How do you vote, Stan?
Yes,
Ron?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so that passes 4-0.
Jen, did you want to discuss the planning grant contract at all? Does that need approval, or has that been approved?
No, that's been approved. The resolution at the very beginning, when we did our public hearing, yeah, gave me permission
Okay.
to sign all that.
Just
So,
wanted to check.
but since you bring it up, we do have that contract and we'll be signing that and moving forward, so pretty exciting.
Okay, that's all I have then.
All right, allowance docket from May. I move to approve the allowance docket dated 5/1/2022 to 5/31/2022.
Second.
There's been a motion made by myself and seconded by Carla to approve this allowance docket. Is there any discussion? How do you vote, Stan?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
And I vote yes, that's approved 4-0. All right. I move to approve the claims docket dated June 13th, 2022 in the amount of $81,249.97.
Second.
There's been a motion made by myself and seconded by Carla to approve this allowance docket. Is there any discussion? How do you vote, Stan?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so that's approved 4-0. And you'll see underneath the claims docket, it says Boilermaker Special. So for our children's parade, the Boilermaker Special has agreed to come lead our parade and then offer rides. So I need approval to pay them after the event happens. So I would move to approve paying the Purdue Reamer Club $500 for the Boilermaker Special for our children's parade.
Seconded.
Motion made by myself and seconded by Stan to approve this payment. Is there any discussion? How do you vote, Stan?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so I will make sure to pay them. Write that down, I pay them too. All right, so the reports, we still have to wait on, the bank recs are not done. So we will put that off to the next meeting. The minutes, we just have 2 minutes to approve. Nope, 3 minutes to approve. I move to approve the following minutes: May 19th, 2022 Town Council, May 24th, 2022 bid opening, and May 31st, 2022 bid award.
Second.
There's been a motion made by myself and seconded by Carla to approve these minutes. Is there any discussion? Okay, how do you vote, Stan?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so those are approved. All right, next is clerk treasurer office planning grant update. So like I said, we did get that agreement, but it was in jeopardy there for a minute because we were in bad standing with the Department of Revenue because of unpaid taxes from 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. And I think I mentioned that before, that I talked to the Department of Revenue. This was before I heard from the planning grant, the person doing that. And I did get them to waive the penalties, but they cannot and will not waive the interest that accrued for all of those. So we are all caught up on the taxes. Those got paid as soon as we knew about them. But the interest was still there, which made us in bad standing with the Department of Revenue. If you're in bad standing with the Department of Revenue, they will not give you a grant agreement for this Oprah grant. So I contacted Alicia, and she was like, yeah, you need to go to State Board of Accounts. So I went to State Board of Accounts, and they said, in order to, not jeopardize this planning grant, you need to pay those, which the town can't pay them. Like, it's not the town's bill to pay. It's the clerk that was here that didn't pay the bills. It's that clerk's responsibility. But instead of trying to dig that money out, the State Board of Accounts said it would be okay for the town to go ahead and pay the interest, and then they will make note of it in their files, and then during the audit it will be dealt with, and then they'll be made to pay that. So we did have to pay it now, which is unfortunate, but it should all wash out in the end. And we are no longer in jeopardy of losing that planning grant. So, little update. And Alicia looked at that, like she said, and so that will get signed and we'll move on. Did you have anything for clerk treasurer office? Did you want to say anything?
No.
Okay. Police. Marshall Taylor.
How much was that?
The taxes or the penalties and interest?
Penalties. Just curious.
A lot of money. I don't remember. It was a lot of money. Thankfully, it was just the interest in the waiver penalties. No, there's so many numbers floating in my head, I couldn't tell you. I mean, I might be able to pull it up, actually.
It's,
Okay, you talk.
as the council requested, I looked into GPS tracking devices for the town's vehicles, the 4 vehicles that we own. I looked at numerous systems. This is just a blossoming, burgeoning field of business, and there's just hundreds of these things out there. So, quite frankly, a little overwhelmed at that. I did have some criteria that I felt would be best for the town and for the council, and that was a system that was hardwired into the vehicles, and that could be directly accessed by the council liaisons or designees to provide direct oversight and accountability and transparency without having to go through myself or Mark to look at those things. So that being said, I talked to our equipment installer over at Move Over Outfitters for some recommendations. He did recommend a couple of devices that he is familiar with and has used in the past and that had good reviews. The first one was very expensive and had a lot of options to it that for the department, for a town size, I didn't really think it was justified. It was like an $8,000 outlay on equipment just at the beginning, not including yearly or monthly costs.
I'm sorry, how much?
Pardon?
I didn't hear the first outlay on it.
It was like $8,000, $2,000 per vehicle, I think it was.
Gotcha.
And then there was monthly fees on top of that. It was a system that every time you turn on your emergency lights, then it would alert oncoming motorists through some kind of cell phone internet interchange that there were problems ahead, and I don't think it's a necessary type of system for the size of our town. So he did recommend another much simpler device company called Vincs, that's VYNCS. They did have good reviews. There were a lot of positives with them, namely being the costs associated with them. They were one of the cheaper options out there, but they were highly rated. Some of the things that were very negative for the town, they would not ship these devices, and nor would they activate them until they were paid. And this is an internet company. They deal totally only online. I tried to contact them. They said we can be invoiced, but they still won't activate anything until they get our money. So really, they're set up for customers who pay over the phone by a credit card or something similar to that. I also contacted their customer service while I was researching that, and it was not very personal. It's your typical big company type setup where you call and you go through a phone tree and then leave a message and they call you back. So it was not very personalized service, and should we have problems with the account, I would see it would be difficult to work through that. Maybe not impossible, but due to the nature of their business, I think it would be difficult for us to use them. Another thing that was negative about that company was that they assigned us, even though we would have 4 devices and 4 cars, they would issue us, we would have 1 username and 1 password for our account. So individual users wouldn't be identified on that account, which I think security-wise is a little lacking. So the other company that I looked at is Verizon Connect, and Verizon is a company that we're all familiar with. We have an account with them. It is a very simple system to initiate, paperwork-wise, red tape-wise, cost-wise. There's no upfront cost, there's no equipment cost. It's basically just a monthly fee added to our account. There's no contracts, and they even have installation available. Now, most of these are plug-and-play units that go into the OBD2, which is the onboard diagnostic port that every vehicle manufactured after '96 has. So, except for our older Chevy truck, that would have to have some kind of hardwired system, which Verizon does offer. It's a pretty simple system to use. When I contacted the Verizon with questions and concerns, I was assigned a personal business account manager, which we already have because we're a business account with them. So I have a person's name, I have a phone number, I have an email, a person that I can communicate if we have problems and have them address those. They have unlimited account user profiles, so that means that each individual would have their own account user profile to log in and access the system. So comparing fees to each of these two systems, the Verizon Connect was $18.85 a month or $17.45 a month. The self-installed was $17.45 a month. The professionally installed, which we would probably consider that due to the 1994 or 6 Chevy truck that we have, is just $1 more a month, or $18.85. So that rounds out to about $837.60 a year, or $909.60 per year. Versus the Vinks was a little cheaper at $560 or $640 per year, but service may be a little questionable. As far as reviews from both, the Vinks had high reviews. Some of the reviews for Verizon, conversely, weren't as good, but I think most of the people reviewing those were account users who were larger business customers, such as the semis and trucking firms who have hundreds of vehicles and were integrating their logging and DOT regulation logs and things like that in that. I didn't see any reviews from someone who was just a small user that was negative. So, those are the two options that I would suggest that council look at, with my leaning towards Verizon if you want this type of system. Any questions? I know that's a lot of stuff. I sent some information out.
No.
Did anybody have a chance to look at any of those two companies themselves?
Yeah, so obviously, I feel like it's kind of a no-brainer to go with Verizon Connect. For me, simply because if you need help with it, you can call them and get help with it. And I think that's super important because, I mean, none of us are experts in, I don't know, the installation or anything. You know, just like Haley's takes care of our cameras, and if we have a problem, we call them and they're like, oh, yeah, this is what we do, let me help you. So, I think that's important. So I'm in favor of the Verizon Connect one.
I agree. I agree too.
Cool.
My experience of dealing with Verizon, we have several cell phones in our jetpacks, which we use for Wi-Fi connection for our in-car computers. You know, if we have a jetpack go bad, all I have to do is call them and they send us a new one. I think being a business customer, customer service is maybe just a little bit better than a private citizen. They work hard to try to keep even a small agency like mine happy.
Yeah.
And they understand the importance of keeping emergency vehicles connected to the internet. So I've had good luck with that company.
Cool. Sounds like we're going with Verizon Connect then. Is there any public comment about this? Okay. So I assume we should probably have a motion to approve this.
Motion to allow
There's no contract, so.
Scott to set it up with
Yeah.
Verizon
All right.
next year.
I would move to
Just
allow.
one question
Yes,
before you start
yes,
that.
absolutely.
There's two plans, there's the self-installed and the professionally installed. Like I said, there's a dollar difference for that. I don't have a preference, I don't think the dollar amount, it only works out to like maybe $60 a year
Yeah.
difference. Since we gotta have them, it would be better to have them make sure that the old car that has to be hardwired is done that way. Maybe go with the professional install,
Yeah.
so it's all,
Unless you wanna
If we
use
upgrade that
it.
truck, then they would come reinstall.
yeah, they would, if we had to have a different unit, they
Yeah.
would provide that.
Right.
And we're not paying for the units.
Yeah, that's it. So I would move to allow Scott to contact Verizon Connect and get this set up for the, plan where they install it, which is $18.85 a month. Yes, Scott? Okay. For all 4 of our town vehicles. Okay, there's been a motion made by myself and seconded by Carla to allow Scott to get this set up. Is there any further discussion? How do you vote, Stan?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Carla? Yes. And I vote yes. So that's a go.
The next topic I had was solicitation, our solicitation ordinance. I believe that we do have a solicitation ordinance, and it's getting kind of antiquated, and I'd like to do some updates on that. And the main purpose is just so that we can make sure we're doing our due diligence to protect our citizens and residents of Dayton from potential fraudsters, scammers, and just out and out thieves. I think there's a big stigma of door-to-door salesmen, and we've experienced a lot of that stigma, and I have personally in dealing with solicitors over the years in Dayton. So some things that really we don't use anymore in our old ordinance, and there's a lot of things we can do to update. So I kind of looked at several ordinances around and came up with some ideas. And the town of Plainfield had an ordinance that I really thought did a good job of trying to vet solicitors. With a few tweaks, I think we could, council agrees with that, alter our ordinance or pattern our ordinance after that. There were a few things in it that we would have to adjust for us. But I made a list of some things, and I sent that all to you, that would be included. Some of those are worded in that ordinance, and some of them would be things that we need to decide on, like fees and bond amounts for solicitors. Some of the changes that we would do, I think it'd be best if the application was picked up and returned to the clerk's office, because they're here more than I am at my office, and easier for the potential customers to access the application, possibly even putting it online. One of the big changes is having the applicants provide their own limited criminal history. And they go through the Indiana State Police to do this, and there's a small fee for that. But it puts the onus on the applicant to do this, and would help me out immensely because a lot of the things that they can get for themselves by applying for this, I can't run a typical criminal history as I would an employee, which is very thorough, but I can't because the law doesn't allow me to run them through my system. So I'm basing my decision only on local records, which a lot of these people out of town, many out of state. These are college kids that come in here, they're doing some kind of business in the summer to raise money to help a college or whatever. But we're seeing these young people from different states even. So if we had this requirement that they would have to get that, apply for it, and then attach it with their application would be Plainfield also makes them if they're doing anything that's health-wise, selling any kind of food product or service connected with health, they have to provide copies of the permits for the state, the state health department where applicable. Things like adding a driver's license or photo ID with their registration, along with copies of vehicle registration. We would remove the fingerprint requirement because we don't do fingerprints anymore. Anytime that has to be done, and the only time I can think where it applies to me is for handgun permits, which very soon are going to be a thing of the past, but they are required to go to a computerized printing facility and have that electronically done and then sent directly to state police. So there's really not a need for that. There is a bond in our current ordinance of $1,000 that the applicant must, or the applicant's company must post. And I asked about that a couple of years ago, and basically that could be a liability waiver or proof of liability insurance for a certain amount. And I don't know what that amount should be. Maybe we got some recommendations from our attorney, but I think that it was like an either-or thing. You could post a $1,000 cash bond with the clerk, and then after you're done soliciting, you can get that money back, or provide proof of liability insurance. We don't spell that out specifically in our current ordinance, which that is. And I think we need to do that. But if they're going to be insured, I would hope that would be, something in the amount of $50,000, $100,000, just in case something happens and something gets hurt. The way Plainfield reads theirs is if there's a problem with a product that a citizen or resident has a complaint with filed against this company, then that bond, if it was paid for in cash, can be used to settle that or settle potential problems with the product, or if somebody felt they were defrauded or something like that. So those were some of my ideas on that. Again, I'm just bringing this up for discussion right now, and if we want to tweak some things, but I'd like to at least have, if you guys are ready for that stuff, you don't want to discuss it, for have our attorney come up with some kind of ordinance integrating those ideas.
So would that kind of put us, with that high of amount, would that kind of put us as the middleman between the guy that sold the vacuum and the homeowner? And then we would have to be like, yeah, dude, your vacuum was terrible, we're gonna give them. Is there a way to avoid that?
I mean, I like the idea of the insurance better than I like the idea of the bond. Like, if they prove that they have either, liability insurance, but they also could have errors and omissions insurance, but the amount, I don't know what we would want to force them to have. I don't really have any good recommendation for that, because, you get a product that explodes in somebody's face, and you're going to need a lot of liability insurance. If you have a baked good that causes them to have food poisoning, you're going to need probably a little bit, and the whole gamut. So as far as like what that would look like, but the thing with the liability insurance rather than the bond is then we wouldn't have to collect that. We just require proof of that insurance, and then if they have the insurance, then they're, satisfying our ordinance, as opposed to collecting any sort of bond amount and then holding it, and then we're responsible for that money, and then we determine when we have to give it back, or,
Do different businesses have different amounts? I mean, like, I'm sure Ron probably has an umbrella policy that
right? So like,
covers that, and I know the town does.
well, and like contractors and things like that, they obviously have umbrella policies, they have liability insurance, they have vehicle insurance, all of that good stuff. I have professional responsibility insurance, professional liability insurance, malpractice insurance. So, yeah, I would think that you probably would have to. I'm thinking, you know, you have Cutco knives come in, I'm sure Cutco has some sort of insurance policy that they give to, or that's a part of the package that you use, because I could imagine a situation where they accidentally cut themselves, or a person is using it and cuts themselves, and they're very sharp, so I could imagine that, but I don't know offhand what, you know, if you've got a company like that, you probably have more insurance than just a little person.
Do we even
You know,
need
a
to
little company.
stipulate, because most reputable companies are going to have a liability policy to present, whereas your fly-by-night person is gonna look, I don't have any of that, okay, well, you can't apply.
Right. I mean, potentially. I'm thinking of like small startups more is what probably wouldn't know that they needed to have insurance. But I mean, standard liability insurance usually comes in amounts of like $500,000, $1 million, and I don't know that they're, you know, I don't know that they're, I mean, I'm used to working with contractors, so keep that in mind. Contracts with liability insurance, but typically, I mean, they have quite a bit of insurance, and I don't know how expensive that is or not. One thing we could do is we could reach out to, you know, some insurance companies and see kind of what their policies look like, to see what a company could have. I can't really speak to that because I don't sell insurance.
Seems like a lot of work for us.
Yeah.
Public comment?
Cindy Marsh, 749 Shady Lane, and I have a solution that would be really easy for Scott and really easy for everyone, and that's if we just ban solicitors. I mean, is that legal to ban door-to-door solicitors? Does anybody like to have people coming to their door selling things? I mean, is that something we need to pull the town on, or what do you think?
That's an excellent question, and
Well,
That's-
not
I'm
kids.
I'm
Yeah,
assuming,
I mean,
I've never heard of it
for
happening, so I'm
businesses.
assuming that you
I don't-
can't.
I'd have to look. I mean, we might be able to under home rule, but I'd have to look and see if the statute covers that. I've never looked
I
at
have
that.
seen signs into town, no soliciting, going into small towns.
I don't think there's anybody favorable in this
I mean, I
town
see it right on
that
their,
solicits.
you know, this is their entrance to the town, and it says no soliciting.
Yeah,
Well, if you were to do that, well, what about like Girl Scout cookies and?
Well, kids, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
We
But
have,
that's the first thing I'm thinking
Well-
of with that, by saying no solicitations, that means no solicitation, and then if you make exception for Girl Scout cookies and kids, you know.
Well, do the Girl Scout cookie people currently go through our process of getting, so they solicit without that as it stands?
yeah,
They
we've got
do.
an exception right now for school fundraisers, not-for-profits.
So we could, I mean, assuming that the statute, the state statute allows us to ban solicitors, we could just put a blanket ban accepting what we have accepted right now.
That's, because I don't think anybody would want to say no to Girl Scouts. or-
No.
And so that would be my only concern with just doing a blanket, no.
I can look and see.
I like it.
Does that scream small friendly town? Welcome to Dayton, don't sell us anything.
It's screams we won't have a problem with them.
I mean, the bottom line is this, most of the people that I know now do it through Facebook,
Yeah.
and they don't go, I mean, there are some companies that sell vacuums or knives that go door to door, but most of them make a contact with you in advance, and then they wouldn't really be soliciting because they're not just knocking on your door to make an appointment.
You're telling me somebody shows up at someone's door and says, I have knives,
They,
wanna see, and someone invites them into their home?
no, because
Oh.
Cutco makes
Okay.
appointments now,
Huh, ooh,
so.
They've done that.
that's scary.
Probably a long time, because otherwise it would be scary. So they, my understanding, I don't work for Cutco, so I do not know, but I did have the presentation because one of my cousins was selling it. But anyway, my understanding is that they have to actually contact the person and have them set a time to come to their home, so it wouldn't really qualify as a solicitor,
Yeah.
like not from door to door.
Okay.
This way would save Scott a lot of time and effort too. So,
To give you some scale on this, so far this year that I can recall, we've had 3 or 4 organizations coming in and soliciting. And one is a company that every year I have to run out of town. They're very aware they can't solicit here without a registration, and they continue to do so. They just blatantly don't care. And we get complaints from citizens who don't like the pushy behavior or out and out refusal to leave. And this other, and they'll send 2 or 3 people in town and try to blanket going door to door. One kid was on a hoverboard last week, and it just disrespectful attitude toward everybody and everything. You know, I can do what I want to do. You learned that wasn't the case, but this type of stuff, but it's not, you know, if we get 6 a year, 6 different types of complaints, we're doing a lot. And I've only had one person this year call and ask ahead of time if we had some. So it's not like we have, our current ordinance is doing a pretty good job of weeding out just based on the amount of headache that I make them go through to make sure they're legitimate. But I'm definitely up for either suggestion, if we can totally ban it.
So what's the penalty for the company that just keeps coming back?
I think we can fine them up to $500.
Have you been doing that?
Haven't had to. Generally, I tell them, I mean, except for that one, I guess like the one that came back a year later, I generally just give them the same spiel.
Yep, up to $500.
Oh, she's on it.
He sent me the statute, or the ordinance.
He's on it.
He's on it, not me.
So we can research that and then go from there, and see what we can.
All right,
All
I'll
right,
look
she's
and see
gonna
if
look
we
into
can.
ban.
Yeah. You wanna make the-
Wait, no, she's gotta look into it.
Yeah, I gotta look and make sure we can legally ban it, and then once I find out we can legally ban it, then we can move forward with that.
Calm down, you welcoming people.
And what I will do with your permission is if we can legally ban it, do you want me to prepare an ordinance to do so?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing, okay.
And if the answer is no, we can't, then what is all that?
Well, we're gonna have to revamp it with a lot of his suggestions, which I think is very valid.
So, one more question, if we can't ban it and then we have to revamp it. So for the bond, when I was like, I don't really wanna get in the middle of that and be like, whatever. Could we still require a bond, but it's like a bond for the town? So like, the dude's on his Segway and like tears up our grass or like something ridiculous where like the town is affected. And so like, we would use that money for us, but we're not the middleman for others.
I don't require the exact wording that Plainfield had, but that bond could be used for any
So,
number
like,
of
get-
problems that would arise because of their business. So,
They said that, any person aggrieved by the action of a licensed direct seller hereunder shall have a right of action on the bond or other surety for the recovery of money or damages or both. And that's basically what it says. So, that's what plain.
I don't wanna send people to court to have to do with it, but I also don't wanna be the court that like decides. to
I mean,
do
I definitely don't wanna do that.
it. Yeah,
Anytime that we can avoid putting ourselves in a position of making decisions that are gonna lead to a lawsuit, we
Yeah.
should do.
yep,
You can
the other
do it.
question was the fee amount. Currently, we're charging $10 plus this bond, which I think is way too low.
yeah.
Should make it at least $50 per person.
I bet the town can do it.
Okay,
Because you're right, Steve.
so you wanna just have her look into it and then report back, and then if we can't, then we'll just all have the ideas in our head what we wanna do then? Okay,
Alrighty.
sound good, Marshall Taylor?
Yes.
Okay.
Last Friday, the transmission went out on the 2015 squad car. I've been trying to get it in someplace. The company that I've been getting my oil changes through, they send all their work to Red and Bow. I called Red and Bow, and they are not used to dealing with government contracts or customers. But they did make an appointment for me. They couldn't get it in until Friday. Ford was a month out. So I'm still looking for some place to take it. I think I'm gonna try Guaranteed Transmission. I got a referral from somebody on them also, see if possibly they can't look at it a little sooner.
They got Dayton roots.
They
Yeah.
do?
Yes,
Mhm.
they do. Deep roots there in Dayton.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ask for Clint Johnson, he'll get you.
He's the owner.
Clint?
He's the- Clint, C-L-I-N-T Johnson. He's the owner, and he'll do something about
His
Okay.
dad lived on the end of Shade Lane.
Okay. Well, great. Glad I brought that up.
In the meantime, Scott wanted me to bring up about perhaps the police switching to maybe a golf cart or a bicycle patrol,
Or horse.
or a horse.
Yeah.
it. Or the pickup truck.
I don't know. I'm sorry, Scott, it doesn't look like it's gonna go through.
We'll throw a snowball.
Along those lines, I normally don't start bringing up this question until the fall, but do we want to think about getting quotes for a new car? I know that lead times on vehicles and equipment are getting longer and longer. So if we're looking at something that we may not get for 6 months, is that something we want to pursue, given that we are one breakdown or accident away from not having a vehicle, period?
Can you give us a report, can you make us a report for another time that's got the mileage, the years, the, if you think anything's gonna be going with them, but, yeah.
What years have you got now?
2015 and 2018.
And how many miles?
The 2015 only has like 75,000 miles, but it's got hours that would equate to a vehicle with several hundred thousand.
Yeah.
And then the 2018 only has like 30-some thousand miles.
I mean, how easy is it for you to pull up some numbers so you put that all together? Where it's like, this is what we have now, this is how much it would cost to get this thing.
Like
Is that something
call
you're-
and get
okay, yeah,
quotes
that would
on cars and equipment.
The other option is if financing is an issue, there are companies that you can work with that do like a lease to purchase finance. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but particularly with vehicles, they spread it out of over like 5 years, and they're frequently used by small towns and small communities to essentially lease the vehicle and then you purchase it, but it's not through a dealership, it's through a financial institution that sets that up. And so I know other communities have used that to buy vehicles specifically for their utilities, police force, that sort of thing. So I do have one that I've worked with before if you want information on that. If you
And I
can pay
think
for
if
it
we
outright,
just-
that's always better.
We've always been able to just
Yeah.
Buy
buy
it.
it outright.
Good. You guys are in better positions than many other communities.
We are, we're
Yeah.
fortunate that way.
Yeah.
We need to look at too, our pickup truck.
Mm-hmm. We
need
gotta
to-
pry it out of Mark's hands. Mark, it's time to let it go. Let go of that old truck.
Because, yeah, we gotta look at, let's look at that, look at the cars and everything.
Listen, what if we get a joint vehicle? You see, it says Town of Dayton Utilities or whatever, but it's just an undercover car. It's really the Dayton police car, but then you both can use it.
Yeah, you could
Something to consider.
patrol in the pickup truck.
I'm
We
so
can get
glad-
those magnet lights that go on top.
Actually, you can use the big Ford.
Something to consider.
Okay. Next topic. I got 2 lights and a faucet we replaced at the PD. Do we want to do that ourselves, or
You
all
are
like
falling apart.
Nate's?
You were falling apart down there.
I know everybody's busy these days, and I just,
You wanna do what? Or you wanna pay somebody to do?
Maybe with the garden and all that stuff, maybe we ought to have Nate do it
Yeah,
this
I
time.
can do that.
Because we got a lot going on with
You
this.
got, you bought the lights, right?
yeah, I've got the lights, I've got the
We just
faucet.
have him come
Just-
put it in.
yeah.
That won't be that bad.
You You guys didn't ask me if I wanted to watch a YouTube video and figure it out.
We know
No,
how
that's
to do
okay,
it,
I
it
don't
just
want
takes-
to. Thanks for asking.
My intention was to do the faucet, but after looking at it, it's been there for a while.
Yeah.
Corrosion, I was afraid that once I start wrenching on it, something might break, and then I'd have to go find and shut off.
Yeah.
I just figured somebody that does it more often than
Yeah.
me.
Do you guys have, maybe Mark will answer this, but you get bottled water and stuff, but somebody asked me the other day, you're still, is that a well down there? That's not town water, is it?
No, that's well.
That's what, well, that's right. I
That's
was
why
asking.
Yeah,
the
maybe
fixtures
because
don't
the
last
pumpkins.
quite as long at that hard rust. We are treating it, but
So we can water that pumpkin garden that's on that hydrant in the barn, we can pull out and fill
Sweet.
tanks or hose
Yes.
and not have to worry about
Yay.
spending a ton. Yeah, good.
Sorry about your faucet, but yay, pumpkins. Water.
Also, some of the neighbors also. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, Nate's doing the lights and the faucet, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
cool.
all right, I will contact them. Get that worked on. Several
I
months-
assume his rates have not skyrocketed like everybody else, right?
Tell, they haven't, they should.
I
Tell
mean,
him they should.
He's been doing some work
Use
for
your
Ron,
brain.
so Ron would know.
okay, I mean. yeah,
We'll
you're
talk it
smart.
over.
What, it's just labor, I can't see it being
Yeah,
too
He'll,
much.
he'll be reasonable, right?
Several months ago, maybe last year, I brought up or suggested about cybersecurity training, and we kind of looked in that, and I think it was a little more, correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, it was a little more expensive than we wanted to get into.
and involved, and, yeah.
Just bringing this up, I went to that Indiana Office of Technology cyber training a couple months ago, and this was brought up, and I asked for more information, and they got back with me today. At that time, I had suggested that I was involved in this training called Know Before, which all of the employees in the county, and including me and Evan, because we have to have county email accounts to access our RMS software, computer things, it's just a requirement. So we get that training with them for free. The state is now, due to the fact that we have done our due diligence at their recommendation, and we have an Indiana.gov account, they can provide that training for us for free, for nothing. So those that want to be involved in it, and I would say
Can
at a
we
minimum,
make everybody be involved in it, whether they want to or not?
anybody that's typically using computers frequently should be involved in something like that. So I would say definitely Mark and Bridget and any members of the council member that want to be involved in that. But if you want me to see what would be involved, I will.
Yes, please.
Like I say, I've already get it, and Evan already gets it, so I don't know how that would work. If I don't want to be getting, what that does is that they send you an email and say, okay, this is the new training module, you have 30 days to complete it. It can range anywhere from 1 minute long to maybe 5 minutes long. It's just, covers a wide variety of topics about scammers and phishing and all the different ways that these hucksters use to try to get access to your computer and things. So they're usually pretty simple, not very involved. It's just making you aware of it, making you read stuff like password security and what not to do, things
Yeah.
like that. You want me to look further into that?
I
See
do.
how we would get onto it? I will.
What do you guys think? Carla, no?
I think those who want to can.
I feel like as a town, if you're, well, I feel like we all have a responsibility, and I think that if we have the availability to protect the town, like it makes sense that we would all do that. Anyway, look into it, yeah, for sure.
I mean, we've had one incident, you know, our previous
Mhm.
clerk had an email from someone that she didn't double check and verify, and we ended up sending somebody's direct deposit Georgia for several months before they caught it. So just simple things that this training suggests you do, to always call and verify. Don't trust any email you get at all.
Right.
And some little indicators that you can identify on the email itself says this ought to be a red flag, maybe not. Something you should- but anyway, I'll see what's involved and how it would work.
Sure.
That's all I have.
Is Evan's training done today then? I mean, is he out on his own and everything? Evan?
Yes,
Yeah.
he is on his own. Tonight is his first night.
Very-
Tell him to stop by. Just kidding.
He was
Doing
Oh,
doing
you
good
don't-
work.
Yeah, he just drove by.
Yeah.
Good for him, checking out town hall. Okay, thank you. All right, next is ordinance change discussion, so I have three things here. Our ordinance 31.021A currently says, the regular meeting of the town council shall be held on the first Monday of every month at 7 PM. In the event that a holiday falls on the same day of a regularly scheduled council meeting, then the meeting will be held on the next Monday after the Monday on which the holiday occurred. So, not just this council, but I don't know how many years before this council, it's been on the second Monday. So I think we just need to change this ordinance so it's correct. Does anybody have any comments about that?
We need to, yes.
Okay. Next, 31.021B currently says that special meetings of the town council may be called upon written notice of not less than 72 hours. So the open door law, which kind of like is above us, says 48 hours. So I don't know why we are more restrictive than they are, but I think it needs to be changed to 48 hours because 72 hours is unnecessary in this day and age, you know. People can get an email, they can get a text, they can get a phone call, they can see it on a website, you know. So, is there any opposition to that, changing it to 48 hours?
You should checks it out. So.
I know
Yeah.
for a fact the open door law is 48 hours.
Okay.
So, yeah, we just have to make sure that if we have a special meeting that we publish by posting on our door, and then we
Yep.
also just need to notify the press. We don't have to publish it in the newspaper, but just tell them that we're having a special meeting. But as long as we follow those rules, 48 hours is with public access.
We also post everything up to the post office.
And on the
Yep.
website.
And on the
Yep, but
website.
as long as we're
Cool.
doing that, we're fine. Yep.
All right, next is the voting cycle to match the presidential election year. So I brought this up to the past council, and nothing was done. I think we need to do something about this, so I brought you some statistics, because everybody loves numbers. So, the 2022 primaries. Can we end my voting?
Have we checked with the election division of Tippecanoe County to determine whether, this is like voting cycles as far as like when we vote for municipal elections?
Yeah, so like right now, we don't match the presidential election, so I
Right.
want to match that.
Have we checked with the election board that we are allowed to change it? Because the election division is the one that runs the elections, and I know that I'm on the Clinton County election board, and our municipal elections are set on different years, and I think that
On
it's maybe by
purpose?
statute. I don't know offhand, but you might call and just check before we have a lengthy discussion about it.
Well, my lengthy discussion pretty much boiled down to, nobody turns out for them, but more people turn out when it's a presidential election, obviously. So, if we can, I would like to match that. I'd like to,
Yeah, I would
if it's
reach
not
out,
up to us, that's what we should.
reach out to the election division
Okay.
and then bring it back up, because I think that they are set that way on purpose, and I think it's by statute.
Okay.
In the same subject type, we talked about before about staggering the board so we're not all re-elected at the same time.
Mhm.
Is that something that we would need to look into and try to see if that's, how that can be done?
Yeah, I mean, I like that idea. I'm not opposed to revisiting that topic, because I do love that idea.
We'll check what we can do on both cases.
Well, that wouldn't be up to the election board, right?
That would probably be up to state statute based on how many,
I know other
Years
towns
of
do it,
term.
a lot of other towns do it.
yeah, based on how many years of term you need. And that's probably set, whether or not we can change that is probably in state statute. So I can take a look at that.
Okay, cool. I mean, while we're at it, are we eliminating the wards? Anyone? Anyone? Yes, all
Are we what?
right. Eliminating the wards.
I think we ought to.
All right, well,
Okay.
this can come up next time. All right, next thing, BFNS front walk and steps, structural engineering, $400. Ron, do you want to explain this?
Yes, BFNS is drawing us up what needs to be done out here to remove this large pad, and they'll get it all ready so we can put it out and get some bids on it or costs. But they want, before they give that okay, they want they don't have a structural engineer, and they want a structural engineer to look at it, say by removing that large pad, which is not attached to the building, but that it will be safe, that the building won't flop over or something. So they gave me a couple names, and one of them, or the one that told me to call, it's $400, and it's Andy Schweitzer, I can't think of the name, Akor, A-K-O-R Engineering. They'll come out here, they'll inspect it, they'll write up a report and everything for BFNS for $400. And because it's a commercial building, you really need to have that done. So can we get that okay?
I make a motion for our structural engineer.
Second. All right, there's been a motion made and seconded by Carla to hire this structural engineer to report back to BFNS. Is there any discussion before we vote? How do you vote, Stan?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so that's good. Approved. Okay, next, Dayton Road, the center stripe. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Yes, you want to?
Okay, ever since we resurfaced Dayton Road South, when you come across that tracks, in the first block there, everybody's running their tire off the road on the right-hand side, and that's never been done in the 48 years that I've lived out here, and it's making a huge rut, and it's breaking down the edge of the road. And I got to looking at it, I think I might have mentioned before, I measured that out there, and the people that put the paint striping on, it's 8 to 12 inches off. It's not in the center of the road. So, it's according to which way you're driving, it looks off one side either way you're driving. But anyway, so I called up a month ago, or a couple months ago, I forgot, I should have brought this up before. I called the company that did the striping, and they did it, they were hired by the people that did the roads, but we had quite a discussion about that stripe, and he ended up saying if we had a letter from the town council saying that we wanted it restriped, they would come out and restripe it from the railroad tracks to Shady Lane. And you'll see when it hits Shady Lane, and then you look on down, the ends don't even line up. One's here and one's here, so. But he said they would go ahead and do it versus, I asked him about giving us the paint and everything and just doing it ourselves. He said, no, if they did it wrong, they would correct it. So, is that okay to have a letter written up to them, because it won't cost us a penny? But otherwise, Mark, is gonna, as tires, and I've been watching it a lot, you just have a natural thing to get over a little bit, it's just over enough that tire, I've seen the big dump trucks, I've seen cars and pickups, and mainly the pickups and big dumps, that tire is right in that rut.
I think we need to fix it, but I got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So when would they do it, and how long would it take?
They would do it in I think, just a few hours. It's not that much, it's just one block there. And I'm not sure when they do it, it's when we get them
I'm
the
just
letter.
saying, just because of the detour and having,
Oh, I think they can, I don't think they need to block off traffic the way they do it, really. I mean, they just, but we can check, we can ask, and if
yeah,
it's,
I mean, I don't want them to be in any danger
Yeah.
because of how people are driving on the road.
Yeah.
And
But I've watched it sometime, that road along there filled with water right now. You look at it after a car hits it, and that splash from one side all the way over to the other side. And sometimes those cars are pulled right over off that road almost. I mean, it's, and I'm the guy walking out there mowing along there, you
Okay.
really see it.
So we need a motion to send a letter. I make a motion, we send the letter. Get your-
Can I write it so that it's not for me?
I second it.
All right, there's been a motion made by Stan and seconded by Ron to send a letter to the people that did the center strike on Dayton Road to redo that block. Is there any discussion? How do you vote, Stan?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Carla?
yes,
And I vote yes, so we'll get that done. All right, next is the road in Baker Farms, but you brought that up in council comments. Okay. Wesleyan Drive, the donation of land. So this kind of goes to Alicia, I think, right?
Yeah, well, first, let me say this.
Okay.
Connor and them are coming up with a legal description. The church and Ron and Cindy are donating the sides of the cul-de-sac, okay?
Got it.
So they're coming up with the legal description, and they should have had it by this meeting, but the guy was sick or something. So
Okay,
they should have it next week. And
okay,
I told Connor that we would get it to you to do the deed right of way with restrictions on it, like we did the Shady Lane cul-de-sac.
okay,
So that'll be coming next week.
okay, so all I need to do is just do a deed from you and then also a deed from the church.
Yes.
Got it, okay.
Cool. All right, next, employee appreciation. So, what I was hoping was that we could spend a little money to show some appreciation for our town employees, not elected officials, but Mark's office, Bridget's office, the police department. Maybe like a lunch, like a catered lunch, or some small gifts or something. I don't have it all in my brain yet, but I was hoping to spend up to $300. We would spend up to $300 to do that.
when and how often, I'm not sure. Well,
One time, right now, when it gets organized.
Is this tied in with Justin?
Yeah, with his retirement, yeah, we would honor him at that. Doug's
Jeff
gonna be
Dustin
retired.
is retiring, we honor
Dayton
that.
Police Department. Anyone? Anyone?
I have no problem with that.
Something like
All
up
right,
here,
so-
something like catered up here or something.
Yeah,
Employee appreciation dinner.
dinner, well, I was thinking lunch, because a lot of
Lunch?
people, I don't know.
Okay, whatever. We're going to do that. Subway,
Chick-fil-A,
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets, and some waffle fries.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
No.
Ew. Does anybody want to make a motion for that?
Make a motion,
To spend up to,
spend up to $300 on employee appreciation.
excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's been a motion made by Stan and seconded by Ron to spend up to $300 for employee appreciation. Is there any further discussion? Okay, how do you vote, Stan?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Carla?
yes,
And I vote yes. So I will buy myself something very nice. All right. Public comment? Yes.
I just want to make an observation that in the 2020 general election, that the town of Shadeland and the town of Otterburn both had election of their council members. I'm not sure about clerk. I bet it's all for both towns.
Cindy, I looked at the statute just now, and it
Oh.
looks like we can do it. We just have to have a ordinance. So I'm gonna have to research exactly what we need to do in the ordinance, but we have to do it in a year preceding a municipal election, which would be this year.
Yeah.
So next year would be a municipal, if we wanna change it. It also has a provision about staggering terms,
Cool.
so.
How about that?
So we can, I just need to.
So
figure
now
out
would you
which
all
one.
like to hear my numbers, or would you like me to wait?
Wait.
Okay. Any other public comment? Any council comments, Dan?
Nope.
Carla?
No.
I have a couple. So I failed to mention when we approved that payment for Boilermaker Special, that was paid for by BF&S, our friends at BF&S. They were, I think we said this, didn't we? That they were super happy to help, so
Yeah.
they paid for Boilermaker Special to hang out with us. Also, the pumpkin patch, if you go down by the police station, it no longer just looks like a field or a field with a dead rectangle in it. There's rows, and it's almost completely done, and there are pumpkins planted, and they're gonna grow, and it's gonna be amazing. But what we need for our pumpkin patch is scarecrows. So, if anyone, children, adults, groups, whoever, you wanna make a scarecrow and put it in our pumpkin patch, do it. That would be awesome. We would love that. Be so cute. Have a bunch of scarecrows in that pumpkin patch that I'm slightly excited about. The children's parade is still a go, June 25th at 4:30. Got some cute posters up about it. You can register on the website. It's gonna be pizza and ice cream and not McGruff the crime dog because Marshall Taylor refuses to dress like a puppy that day, but there'll be some Safe Kid ID kits and fire department. So, it's gonna be awesome. Trying to convince Mark to get into a dump tank. I don't know if it's gonna happen or not. We'll see. But anyway, that's still a go. Super pumped
We'll
about
put
that.
in city orders, too.
No, I'm switching for that. We'll use both. Okay. Those were all my council comments. Does anyone else have anything?
Jeez.
Don?
I got a couple of things. I don't know if I said it before, but the Dayton United Methodist Church is done donating money to help pay for the utility bills, monthly bills. And in the last year, they donated $17,000 to the town to disperse all these bills.
It was a lot of families
A
helped.
lot of families were helped, and it's a big thank you to the Dayton United Methodist Church. Another thing, I was talking to a farmer that across from SIA down here, those acres that sold are 346 acres on the south side of 38. And what's proposed in there is mostly warehouses want to be in there. So there's another large field of 340 some of warehouses. So it seems to me like the board ought to push Tom Murtaugh and stuff to get off of this kick on all these warehouses in Dayton. And maybe the fields that are left, or the berry farm and stuff, we really need to think more on trying, and they'll help with this grant money coming in doing planning and stuff, but really try to plan and hopefully go back to the plan that the whole town's always wanted, a mixed development up there and everything. But we really need to look into that. And it seems to me like with the Carr family doing all that lousy big warehousing and this 346 acres, it seems to me like it'd be nice to have the last 100 acres available, something that Dayton could really do something neat with. And for the town residents and the people of Dayton, instead of all of these out-of-town factions. So, we just, hopefully that planning thing will come pretty soon.
It's coming.
Yeah. I think that's it.
Okay. Having no other business before us, this meeting is adjourned.